Hasbro, the CFO of Hasbro, and the CEO of Wizards of the Coast.
Okay, so Larian Studios, the people who made Baldur's Gate 3, have already said that everybody that they worked with to, like, get the IP of, get everything right with Baldur's Gate in those initial talks, and everybody they worked with, part and parcel the entire way, Copper, come here, get out of that, have been fired. They're all gone. And I also want to be clear that I did the math, and if we presume that the average, like the median, like the average salary, just the average salary of the people that worked, that were everyone that was fired, was like $60K, not including benefits. The money that the executives paid to themselves could have saved 300 jobs. If it did include benefits, could have saved upwards of 150, 200 jobs. But these guys are rational actors, right? I understand that, the whole lefty thing of, like, capitalism bad, blah, blah, blah. Corporations are, like, gonna do the worst thing and they'll preserve profit, but I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. What about this is, like, good for corporate profit? Because it's like, we saw this with the pandemic, right? Like who is and who is not considered an essential worker. And even the ones that were considered non-essential still, like, they were working from home and doing all that shit. So, like, I'm sitting here genuinely wondering what the outcome of what these CEOs think, like, firing all of the people who are materially important to the ongoing running of these businesses. Because, like, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, these things, like, these are not, the business knowledge of, like, how all these different things work is an important aspect of, doing this job. You have to, if you're one of the stewards of Dungeons and Dragons, you have to know a lot of shit about Dungeons and Dragons. You can't just meander your way through the job thinking you can just wing it. So when you fire these people, you fire that institutional knowledge, and you don't have access to it anymore. You do that enough times, and, like, eventually you're just going to have a bunch of people there who are paid not enough to give a fuck about the IP, and just are there to collect a paycheck, which there's nothing wrong with showing up a job and just collecting a paycheck. But when you're not being paid enough to give a shit about it, and, the CEO just fires 1,000 plus people, and then takes a personal almost $10 million in a bonus, like, how is this, like, I understand that this is how, like, corporations have been running businesses for, like, the last 20 years, since the late 80s, but on what planet does this result in a feasible long-term business? Like eventually, like, it feels like every business is being run, like, in such a way that it's eventually going to result in a bubble, right? Like, it feels like every business is going to result in the entirety of the business falling apart simply because, they're not able to, cut expenses, like, because they're trying to get explosive short-term quarterly gains, and the result is a shitty product in a company that's failing, and then it gets bought out by a competitor or bailed out by the government, but it doesn't actually change anything meritoriously about what's, on the thing. And it's like, and this is part of the reason why, like, I am an advocate for, like, worker-owned options of, like, businesses. Like, even with a corporation that is, like, international, if every worker who is, if you have a worker co-op or even something, similar to the Gore model comparatively, what you're gonna have people that give a shit about the product that they're doing, And things like short-term quarterly gains become less of an issue, because at the end of the day, I think the biggest problem and the reason why a lot of the things in our economy suck, there's a lot of reason. I have a prior video from a couple days ago where I talk about, evangelicalism and how that is kind of the politics of their politics have sort of made life in America terrible. Another contributing factor to why America is having a really hard time with this is simply for the fact that the shareholder class which owns most of the companies in America is not doing they don't care about having a strong long-term viable business, because they can just sell all their shares and fuck off at a moment's notice. And it's whatever. But to bring it back to Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, and them, we just saw this with the gaming industry, the video game industry. We just saw that something I think 40% of all developers everywhere got fired this year, or some crazy number like that, or maybe more. I might be wrong about that number. I think I'm lowballing it, actually. And it's like you at a certain point, these companies that handle these IPs that we care about, it's like a ship of Theseus. At what point is it not what we fell in love with it for? BioWare is a very good example of this. BioWare made Halo. BioWare, that was incorrect. BioWare made Mass Effect and Dragon Age. Everybody that everybody that worked on the first 3 Call of Duty games, most of them went over to the people to make Titanfall. The guy that made Hearthstone is now working on Marvel Snap. At what point does I feel like these executives treat these companies like they are what they are, but companies are just a contracted hierarchy of people working on something. And it's Blizzard's another good example. How many people that used to be at Blizzard that were a critical part of what made Blizzard amazing are now gone because they either just got tired of being treated like dog shit, or they touched on somebody and they finally got consequences come due. I know this is kind of meandered a little bit because it's just I'm sorry, because I just have such a difficult time fucking fathoming the amount of what the fuck is this dog doing? Do you got a tick on you, bub? What's up? No, he's just licking his ball sack. No, it's not. What was I saying? All right, I just I cannot believe that a political commentator, he who must not be named, I watched put it best. These people who are who the rich and powerful are so detached. They're so detached from the average suffering of you and I that they genuinely think that they're doing the right thing and everything that they're doing is okay. They view us as pawns on a chessboard, and they have no reason to, they think this is the way things are, this is the way things are being, I am a good steward, and I'm making the choices that have to happen. And there's you can't, if you show them abject poverty, that just that the conditions of the average person are living, they just disassociate. They just cognitive dissonance, just don't fucking associate it. And it's, I don't know. I'm fucking poor too. If you got $5 to throw me, I'd appreciate it. Whatever. I'm gonna go get this eye looked at. So I'm gonna go get this eye looked at so I don't get a I'm gonna get this eye looked at so I don't look like I have a bust, I got in a fight before my mom takes pictures for Christmas. So have a good one, everybody.